jesteśmy.
No teraz jeszcze witamy się z
Once again,
tę film springową
good
środę przed
hello on this
przedostatni
Wednesday
oficjalny dzień
of
plenerów,
our
16
penultimate
plenerów
day
Film Spring Open.
of
I
Film
nie
Spring Open
licząc,
Festival and
ostatniego
a
kończącego
workshop, and
wykładu
not
Sławomira
and
Idziaka,
apart from
który
the
będzie
final lecture which by
jutro.
Sławomir Idziak, which will
Dzisiaj
take
jest
place
taki
tomorrow.
ostatni,
Today we are having the final
naszego eksperta, gościa,
lecture of
którego
our
zmogła
expert, our
choroba,
guest,
więc
who
nie może być z
unfortunately
nami fizycznie,
got
ale
sick, so he
jest
could
z
not be
nami,
with us physically,
online. Mam
but
nadzieję,
he's
że
with
nas
us
słyszy,
online, and I
jest
hope
bloger,
he sees and
dziennikarz,
hears us.
reporterzysta,
Blogger,
autor
journalist,
bardzo popularnego bloga.
feature
Halo,
author,
Konrad
and author of a
Dzień
very
dobry,
popular
Konradzie, czy
blog.
nas słyszysz i
Hello,
widzisz? Słyszysz?
hello, Konrad, can you hear
Ja
us?
ci oddaję głos,
I'm leaving the
ale
floor
po,
to you,
tym, co
but
Konrad ma
after
wam do
what
powiedzenia,
Konrad
mam
would
do
like to
powiedzenia
tell you, I have
ważnych
a
rzeczy,
lot of other things to tell you
na taki temat być
um,
może spychany na margines i
on the topic
niedoceniany.
that is not always maybe
O ego,
well
poczuciu
well
wartości,
understood, or
poczuciu własnej
it's
wartości.
about ego, about
Potem
feeling your
jeszcze
own
mamy dla
worth,
was małą
and
niespodziankę.
we have a small surprise for you at the
Konrad,
end.
oddaję ci
Konrad, I'm leaving the floor
naszą
to
platformę.
you, our platform to you, and thank you.
Dzięki, cześć Film Spring. Oczywiście
Hi.
nie mogłem być
Hello,
z
Film
wami
Spring. I
bardzo,
could not
bardzo
be
żałuję.
with you alive, which I'm very sorry about. I'm also thankful to Dominic, who took care of the group that I had to took care, and I think it was of great benefit for Film Spring Open that Dominic joined us. And talking about ego, the topic that sometimes it is so that how we feel, how we think is the topic of our work. We talk about that a lot in films, but it also happens so that we are not trying to filter these stories through ourselves and through how we work. In Film Spring Open, it is very often that Sławomir Idziak uses this thought that filmmakers, in general, authors, artists need a lot of ego, and they have a lot of ego, and they need that ego. Were it not for this feeling of self-worth, we would not be able to push our life and our work forward. You need to some ego, you need to have some elbows to and internal feeling that whatever we do is something that other people should see, that has enough worth, that we should occupy somebody else's time. The time is the only currency that is non-returnable, that once you lose it, it will not come back. And regardless whether it's 10 or 15 or minutes or like full feature time, somebody who sees that film, whether that's a commercial, 30-second commercial, they will not regain those 30 seconds or 100 minutes. On the other hand, for the last 4 or 5 years, as long as I've been with Film Spring Open, I manage people who are I'm doing less of my own creative work. I'm working with creative teams, and I'm leading these people, making these people work well, and this is fascinating. On the other hand, it's a permanent tension because creators also know better. And very often they have their own vision and they prefer their own vision over what is the goal, the business goal, or a social goal when it's a social sort of an ad or a movie. And usually this conflict breeds interesting things, but it is difficult. It is also, and we quite often meet with that on during Film Spring Open, and this is something that we hear during our meetings, is that the film debut, especially after film schools, is the first and the last film made by an artist. Some of us later make it to the world of commercials, then we produce with earning like decent money because these are productions that allow us to earn well, but we feel this unfulfillment of our craving to do something more important than 30 seconds about McDonald's or some new car model.
Ja się na Filmspringu wielokrotnie spotykam z takimi
I meet in Film Spring Open quite often with people who say that it's the fault is with the system, with the circumstances, with the market, and if only those conditions were different, this fantastic film of theirs, like potentially showered with awards, would be created within several months. And I do believe it in part, but in part I do not. And this tale of mine will be the summary of observations of my work with Film Spring Open, with the participants from previous editions, with people who I work with, and also my own experience, knowledge, and some wiser or less wise books I've read. If we're talking about ego, this is something that Freud introduced in our language with all its impact, and since that time, ego acquired or was given many, sometimes even vernacular meanings. However, I would like to keep to that basic source to remind us of the structure. It was assumed, Freud assumed that our internal structure, the mental structure, is built out of three elements. Id, I think some time ago, Jacek Santorski was talking about that in an excellent way during Film Spring. You should really search out this video on YouTube. Id is something that is born out of nature. It is an instinct. All our needs, cravings, the basic ones, but also all those impulses and emotions, anger, uncontrolled joy, enthusiasm, something that we could ascribe more to a child, and some basic needs than ourselves in the moment where we are here now. On the other hand, we've got superego, the collection of convictions that were superimposed on us by culture, by parents, by the voices of parents, the moral codes, the voice of the church, very strongly in Poland, for example, what you can do and what you cannot do. Between these two between the social structures that we have in our heads, which we want to follow or we don't, and between it comes to many conflicts. When I'm sometimes really angry and I really have the feeling that I should shout at somebody, but at the same time I know that this is not something you should not do, and I'm trying to suppress that somewhere inside me, then a conflict appears. And the structure within us that should solve those conflicts and look for some sensible solution is ego. And the basic function of ego is the dialogue between these two sides of our functioning, but ego is the closest to who we really are and how we think about ourselves, our internal grown-up. If I could use that example, I would use that example from Film Spring and my absence with you live, when a week ago I was ready to appear, and during the night I got very high temperature and I got an angina, and I knew that I could not be with you. In reality, these my basic natural feelings appeared. The feeling of I was feeling bad that I'm letting you down, that I would have to call Marta, to call Sławek, and my basic sort of instinct is to run away. Of course, I'm exaggerating it, but what I would do most, I would turn off my phone, turn off my Facebook, hide under my duvet, and hide for a week. Maybe nobody will notice that. The fleeing is one of the basic instincts we have when in situations which are embarrassing. Of course, it's irrational because illness is not a cause for embarrassment, but I'm talking about my
Z drugiej
natural,
strony,
uncontrolled
odzywa się moje
instinct.
superego i
On the other hand, we've
poczucie,
got superego.
nadmiarowego,
The
skrajnego
superego,
obowiązku. Muszę
the
być.
superego
Nie
and
mogę
my
po
feeling
ostatniej
of
chwili
of
zostawić,
obligation and duty. I have to go.
dobrych
I cannot
znajomych,
leave
ale
my
też,
friends
wydarzenia, które
and
są
the
dla mnie
event
ważne
which is
co roku,
important for me every day,
bez,
every year.
swojej
Without
obecności.
my
To jest obowiązek,
presence,
to jest obowiązek.
my
Musi
duty
tak być,
is my
nie?
duty. This
I,
is what I
posłuchanie
have to
jednego
do.
albo drugiego,
Listening to one or
drugiej
the other
narracji byłoby po prostu
would be
nierozsądne,
would be
bo albo bym
unwise,
pojechał
because I
chory,
would
jeszcze pożałował
either
wszystkich wokół,
I
po
either
prostu
go there
było
sick and I
niewiele
would
jakości,
transfer
jaką
my disease to everybody around, and the quality would not be the same.
właśnie dobrych
Or
znajomych,
I would
ważne
leave my
wydarzenie
friends
bez,
and
bez
your
bez
event
kontaktu
without
i
any
bez
contact, without any answer, with some problem. What I and you thinking what's really happening to. And this is where when ego enters the scene, and it can negotiate with both parts of my mentality, of my personality, and healthy ego. I'm not saying I have a like purely healthy ego, but it will lead to a solution that you can call, you can search for solutions, ask somebody for help. So thanks to that, Dominic is with us on Film Spring Open. We'll have a chance to talk to him, and I'm very happy with that. I feel and I think that among artists, people of high sensitivity, quite often there is no space for dialogue between the two. You either react in a very emotional way, or from a point of view of a very like sacrifice, a lot of work, a lot of effort. There is no healthy, maybe not middle way, but the dialogue between the two. This doesn't mean that a healthy ego is the compromise between the one and the second. Sometimes you have to let it go and be the child from the lower level and spontaneously be happy or spontaneously be angry. The important thing is that we need to be aware where we're pressing the buttons on this remote control of ours, and when we're not. And Jacek Santorski, when I'm talking about the structure, I quote him, and I actually heard him for the first time in Film Spring. He said it's worth for the creator to be for the artist to have an ego, but it's bad when ego has the artist. So when it happens when the ego has the artist, this is a variant of a chart I'm showing in has been showing in Film Spring for the last few years. In a normal development of any competence, you would think that together with developing knowledge, experience with each next film production, presence on the set of somebody else, we should acquire more self-confidence and the feeling that you know how to do it. But this is not how this chart normally looks like. The Kruger-Dunning research, which is extremely valid in the world of film and in the artistic department. First, we think we are able to do everything. We have the best visions. We have the world is lying at our feet, and we don't listen. Won't listen to everybody. We'll be doing this great masterpieces, but we do not have knowledge and experience, and when we enter production we see that life is much more complicated. It's much more difficult to get money. The first effects of our work is not yet Lars von Trier, but rather early Polish YouTube, and this drastically we lose our self-confidence. Together with experience, your self-confidence comes to a higher level, but in the very beginning we are functioning in illusions. So if we're talking about ego, and I were to tell you where ego is healthy and how when it serves us, and how in this process of making certain decisions or taking up certain activities it could be our friend, it is when it is very close to reality, when our self-confidence is adequate to what we can do. Then we can listen to others, not letting go of our vision. We can use the help of others. It's easier for us to ask because we know that we need help. And for those
moich czy warsztatach w poprzednich latach, czy na
During my
szkoleniach
workshops
tego
in previous
typu
day,
jest
during the
nowym,
workshops in Film Spring,
naprawdę
this
go,
you know this
pokazuje,
this chart
co
is nothing
każdy
new.
wykład.
I really show it
Natomiast
during
dzisiaj,
every
chciałem iść trochę o krok
during every
dalej,
lecture. But today I wanted to go a bit
opowiedzieć wam
further
ze swojego własnego
and
doświadczenia,
tell you from my own
doświadczeń
experience
dziesiątek ludzi,
and
których
the
pracę
experience of
obserwowałem,
tens
których
or
miałem
dozens
szansę
of
też
people
uczyć,
I
ale przede wszystkim
whose work
z
I had a chance to
domu,
observe,
jednego z,
but also from the
absolutnie wybitnych,
from
już
the
niestety nieżyjących,
from the work of one of the
doktorów
absolutely
psychiatrii i
remarkable,
psychologii, doktora
unfortunately,
Daniela Brandena, o tym, jak te iluzje,
Dr. Nathaniel Brunel, who's
uzbrajać, żeby
how to
rzeczywiście
disarm those
filmmakers
illusions, so that
w
this
życiu,
chart
i żeby to ego,
would be better, would look like
było,
this, and so that
bardziej
this
osadzone w
ego would be
rzeczywistości,
more set
bardziej o
in
nas,
reality,
bardziej o
it
tym,
would
jak-
be more
jak-
about us
jak
and
nie
not
jest,
about
nie
how it is
ulegało
not,
tym w ogóle
and
tym,
that you would succumb less
co mnie
to
oddziałują.
Indian
O czym
super
teraz powiem,
ego.
będzie też w znacznym stopniu skrótem książki, która funkcjonuje.
Nathaniel
między
Brandon
polskim
is
językiem
would be a
polskim,
shortcut
jest
about the
dostępna
book,
cały
which is
czas,
still
można
available
ją-
in the market in Polish and in
można ją
English. You
dostać,
can
też w
buy it
formie,
also in the form
e-booka.
of
Gdyby
ebook.
ktoś czuł się jakoś tym
If you
zainspirowany,
ever
chciałby to
felt
pogłębić,
inspired
to,
by that and
to
you wanted to
odsyłam
deepen that,
nie tylko do
I
tej góry,
refer
do
you
roku
to
naukowego.
the scientific
I
works by
takich 6
Nathaniel Brandon.
obszarów, które pozwalają
And
to ego
and the 6 areas which
osadzić w dobrym,
allow
adekwatnym
you to
miejscu.
set this ego in a good,
Pierwszy z
adequate
nich to
place.
praktyka
One of them is the
świadomego
practice
życia.
of conscious
One jedne
life.
wynikają
One
z drugiego.
spring from another. They are sort of
Druga
one
rzecz,
get
praktyka
is
świadomego życia,
blossoms
świadome
from another.
życie,
The practice of
brak zdrady rozumu,
of aware
tego, co my,
life,
widzimy.
Of life full of
Co to
awareness
znaczy,
is the
kiedy ja mówię,
non-betraying
zdrada rozumu?
non-betraying
Większość
your
ludzi,
reason. The
a
majority
zwłaszcza
of people,
twórców, artystów,
especially artists, creators,
nie są ludzie,
they are not people who
mają bardzo niską
do
inteligencję.
have
Też nawet
who are
ludzie niskiej
of very low
inteligencji
intelligence,
mogą
even though people of very low intelligence can also live
Bardzo
a
łatwo,
life full of awareness.
Ciekamy, wypieramy motywacje i wty. Nie chcę na to, co jest wokół. Podam trochę takich przykładów.
I will give you
parę
some
filmowych,
examples
parę z
from the
życia.
film world,
Może najpierw
sometimes
takich-
from life.
są
I'll
ludzie,
start
którzy
from with
nieustannie jedzą
there are people, for
jedzą.
example, who are eating
I z jednej
junk food all
strony
the time.
wiedzą o tym,
So on one hand, they know
wiedzą, że
about it.
to-
They know that
wiedzą, że to szkodzi
that
ich
this is
zdrowiu,
bad for their health.
a z drugiej
But on
strony
the other hand,
konsekwentnie nie wprowadzają
consequently, they did
żadnych
not
zmian. To
introduce
jest
any change.
Czyli ja wiem, że to mi szkodzi,
So I know
ale
that
tak
it's
naprawdę
detrimental
nic
to
z
me,
tym
but
sobie- nic z tym sobie.
I'm not doing anything with it.
Obserwujemy siebie i wiemy, że odkładamy.
We're observing
pracę nad
ourselves, so we know
scenariuszem
that
z
that
tygodnia
we're
na
procrastinating
tydzień,
the
z
work on a
tygodnia na
script
tydzień.
week after week.
I mijają 2 lata
And
i my
after
ciągle
2
mówimy,
years,
za
we're
miesiąc
still
to
talking,
zrobię.
I'll do that
To jest
next
uciekanie
month.
od
This
takiej
is
samoświadomości.
running away from your
Jeśli
self-awareness.
przez 2 lata,
If for
co
2
miesiąc
years,
mówię, za
every year you
miesiąc
said
nic
that
się
you'll
nie
do something in
zmienia,
a month,
no to znaczy,
and
że
nothing
odkryję
changes, that
jakiś
means
pattern,
that
że
I'm
warto
in
byłoby,
some trap.
warto byłoby coś z tym,
It would be worth
coś
doing
z tym
something with
zrobić.
it.
Bardzo często jest też
Quite
tak,
often
że
it is
mamy
so
sobie
that we
takie
have
jesteśmy filmowcami.
I believe that we are
Ale ostatni
filmmakers,
sensowny film
but we
zrobiliśmy
made our last
2-3 lata temu.
series film 2-3 years ago, so whatever sort of production.
Prawda jest taka,
The
że my
truth
nie
is
wiemy,
that
czy
we
jesteśmy
don't, we're
świetnymi
not really know
twórcami,
if
bo nie
we're
próbujemy,
great
nie
filmmakers
zderzamy
because
tej,
we're not trying,
z,
we're not challenging
rzeczywistością.
our beliefs with reality.
I świadomość to jest tak naprawdę też taka
Awareness
próba uważności
is also
na to,
this
co
attempt
mną
at
kieruje,
being aware of what am I
co
doing, what
odczuwam.
are your
to jest taki
motives
pierwszy krok do
and
tego, żeby nie
what
oddawać swojego
triggers me.
życia,
This is important not to give, not to leave your life to a remote control.
tam, jakbyście chcieli
Or
sobie
autopilot.
ocenić, czy żyjecie świadomie, czy nie, to
If you want to
musicie tej liście
know
sobie
if you're living an aware life or not, it's good to look at this list and find out
Ja
if you,
podkreśliłem takie
of course, I
wydaje mi
underlined
się
those
bliskie
points
naszemu
that
środowisku,
are close to
środowisku,
our environment, to our
twórców,
community, the community
wolę
of
faktu interpretacji
the
emocji.
creative community.
Ja ubolewam nad tym, natomiast nie byłem na planie zdjęciowym, gdzie nie byłoby bardzo silnych
I haven't
emocji,
worked.
napięcia. Mam
It's.
takie poczucie, że
I haven't been in a filming set where there weren't many emotions. I feel that the people who have the least emotions on the film scene are the gaffers because they're doing their job. But if we're talking about they're doing a very creative work, of course, too.
jakoś łatwiej
but
tak stereotypowo
it's
podejść
like
do pracy kreatywnej.
by stereotype, like a cliché is that it's easier for them to go through that with less emotion than the director, the DOP. There's so many various tensions there, and lack of concrete information. This of course changes. We're also going through some generational change which impacts that.
Myślę, że to jest taki grzech młodości, że nam się wydaje, że wszystko jest łatwiejsze.
We also tend to think that everything is much easier than in reality. So it's very easy to fall into such illusion that the ending of or the finishing of a certain work is not dependent on our own work but on the circumstances.
I to pierwszy punkt.
And this is the first point of the possibility of the willingness to correct your own mistakes, openness to new knowledge, and the readiness to revise old beliefs and errors. Film Springs make a big stride ahead for this community to be able to open this community to reviewing the ways of thinking. In the beginning, when the cinema was still like a technological gimmick, and there's a lot of only later it became a work of a piece of a domain of art, and there's a lot of technology in the cinema, in the cinematic world. And when I think about the mindset of people of the film, we're always trying to work in old assumptions where the productions have to be big and expensive. People who didn't graduate from the film schools are worse filmmakers. This perennial conflict between the real filmmakers and the people who are making films on the internet. I absolutely do not understand that conflict because these two communities could perfectly go hand in hand. On one hand, the film industry could provide expert knowledge how to tell the stories. On the other hand, the world of young people who are conquering the internet could sort of let off some steam that we're doing this fantastic art and we're starving and we never have money for our films and as well as for film events. Just awareness. Ask yourself, what is my here and now? The second area, according to Brandon's concept, is self-acceptance. And I think self-acceptance is key when we understand which place we're in, and especially when we realize that our ego was a bit bloated. And it moved away from the reality. So there are three levels of self-acceptance. First, you refuse to be your own enemy. I spent last 2-3 years without writing a feature. I didn't create any production for myself. I did a number of social things, but that's true, and that's a fact, and I admit I didn't. I wish I did. I don't know if I can still do that. There is some potential in that, but it doesn't mean that I have to flagellate myself. I don't need to torment myself, and this is what I see, and I accept it. The second thing, which is also the second level, is that to accept the full spectrum of the feelings and emotions which relate to our functioning at work, but also in life in general. If I'm mad at myself that I'm not creating this material even though I would like to, if I promise myself that if I sit to some script or to some business plan in 2-3 weeks, but I don't want to do that because I'm overworked with my other duties and obligations, then I can do something with it only when I accept it and I don't struggle with it. It's a bit like if you want to prepare for exam sessions and you don't want to, you say, I want to do it, and we get into this horrible stupor, and of course you do not have to succumb to it. It's important to notice it, because only when we notice it, then we can resist it. I can say, I don't want to work on something, I'm tired, But
po drugie,
that means
dopiero to po
I
pierwsze
either
zobaczyć
need
świadomość, a po drugie
some
zaakceptować,
sort of
że
breather,
rzeczywiście jest.
or I can
Trzeci
do
poziom
something else, but only when I first
jest
notice
też
it.
strasznie potrzebny w naszym środowisku.
The third level, which is also very necessary for our community, is compassion and care about yourself. First, I refuse to be my own enemy. Then I look at the whole spectrum of who I am and what's happening to me in a very honest way. And then it's important to look at yourself with care and self-compassion, even at your errors, even at the wasted time, and tell yourself it resulted from somewhere, it had some context. It's not about giving excuses, it's about understanding yourself. We have this tendency to flagellate ourselves, to instead of liking ourselves. The third level, responsibility, and the responsibility is set in the right place, but also when we are quite conscious of what's happening and we know that we can say what I can impact, what I cannot impact, and make it slightly more real. However, finally, for me, reality means that is where I can act, or where I can undertake given activities. I can turn certain declarations into reality. I'm not trying to fool myself that somebody else is responsible for this not happening. For example, do we have a weird, strange model of financing movies? We do, but there are people who can do that. People who can go around the system and do it without any sort of special connections, so it's possible. And if I want to do something, nobody will do it for me. I'm responsible for realization of my own dreams. It doesn't mean that everything is possible. I'm really far away from this crude, horrible coaching, which says that you can do whatever you do, work, believe yourself, write down the motivational quotations on your fridge. Just no. What I mean, stop thinking that somebody will do things for me. Somebody will get the crew together for me. Somebody will write a script for me. Somebody will go through 50 discussions with sponsors and will go through 49 refusals. No, we are responsible for not always for the result of our actions, but for taking actions. Yes. The fourth element is the assertiveness. Usually, for us, assertiveness means usually saying no, and this is extremely important too. I think that the film industry is undergoing revolution, just like in general the job market, and I'm really happy about that. Up to now, we had this mindset that people from film production are people who always can be there, can work on with contracts or without contracts, who are doing working for ages and for hours and hours on end just to get the next assignment, because they would not want to do that. They would be off the market. We didn't care at all about the work hygiene, especially of technical workers for the and this is changing right now. We're undergoing right now a mental revolution about work and about our own good, but it will not change until we learn to say no. I'm working in a pro-government organization which is just past the huge crisis which is related to job organization, and I do have this strong conviction in me that it's very easy to enter this mode of work 24/7, because it's easy then to explain this auto-destruction with some noble idea or some artistic mission, just like in case of film production. But of course, I'm responsible to look for solutions. However, assertiveness doesn't mean aggression or putting borders without unpermitted border. It's a process. The important thing is to look for the right forms of expressing your no. It's also the skill of saying yes. It's also the ability to ask the world to satisfy our needs for somebody to help us. And sometimes, in my view, it's sometimes much more difficult than saying no.
I tak, i asertywność to jest też umiejętność
Assertiveness is
kwestionowania,
also the
takiego
skill of questioning
status quo.
things, this
Zastanów
questioning of the existing status quo.
No i mam nadzieję, że już jakby trochę w was rezonuje,
I hope that it resonates within you that these areas are sort of cascading. In order to be able to say no, I have to be aware of what I don't like, what is getting in my way. Then I have to accept some feeling in myself that I will need somebody to help me. I am responsible for setting the limits or asking for something. And when I get to this assertiveness, a healthy ego, whether it's big or small, can manage what is natural and which is our id, and which is the cultural scheme or superimposed structure. So when we're tired, it's much more difficult to manage these two extremes within ourselves. Last but not least, a purposeful life and assertiveness and responsibility and taking care of your own emotional thermostat. You needs to serve something. You need to know what you want from life, and it's good if this goal is concrete. Film Spring is a great space to test out various things, various workshops. There's some documentaries, it's good to find your place in one crew, of course. But you can glimpse any element of production, of film production, or even the world of film. And ask yourself a question, what I would want to do, because you cannot do everything. And usually if you want to do everything, at the end of the day, he does nothing. I think this is the most banal thing I said in my presentation so far. But I see films who go to Film Spring every 2 years. He said he wants to go on YouTube. He made 2 films, pretty good. He put them on YouTube. One of the films was viewed by 10 viewers, and another one by 40 viewers, and so he resigned. And he's looking for musical videos, and then he changes. So if we have one goal, it allows us to be resilient and to try. It's good. It's important that this goal is concrete, and then we're not subject to chance. I really want to go back to feature, to writing features, small features, but all artistic features, but also documentalist forms of videos. And today, when I undertake the different professional projects, then at the back of my head, I have in the back of my head that I'm between my family life and the other things that I'm doing. I would like to come back in practice into feature journalism. However, the goal, when it's named, it's clear, and I feel discomfort whenever I betray my goal, and this discomfort can be really motivating. It reminds us what I promised to myself in the past. I think that among the film creators, the biggest drama is when we resign from big goals and big dreams, when we wanted to be where we stopped wanting to be Lars von Trier. I'm repeating Lars von Trier because I love this director, but then we agree to this reality that we will be doing just commercials, and on the other way around, we would like to make great commercials that will be viewed by millions of people, and we resign from that at some stage, and we concentrate on some TV work, regardless of what we want to do. It's more that we're betraying that goal because our circumstances got the better of us, and we resigned from shaping our own circumstances. I hope that Film Spring is still a place where people are charging the batteries for a year, and they're able, and they can follow their dreams and what brought us, and remember what brought us to this world. And Every year I finish Film Spring with this nagging feeling that I should have done something greater, but because I haven't done anything like righteousness is another thing that allows you to keep this ego at the right place. It also builds our feeling of self-worth. I understand this very broadly. I do not say that we should all be like impeccable in moral sense. I don't think there are no people like that. And at the moment when we accept that we are not perfect, then we accept that we will be making moral mistakes, also to a large scale. People of large sensitivity are exposed to moral qualms or moral problems to more extent than those people who have thicker skin. It's important to be honest towards yourself. If we do have some beliefs and we follow them, and there is some coherence between our declaration and what we do, it's good. But when we make a mistake, it's good. You should admit this before yourself and to regain that integrity and improve on those mistakes. So all those things, elements, it will be righteousness from the end to the purposeful life, assertiveness, the responsibility and the conviction that to a bigger extent I'm creating, not to a whole extent, but I'm creating my professional life and personal life. Self-acceptance. So on one hand, I know what I feel, and I'm not. I'm not my own enemy. I'm aware of how I function, and I do not negate reality. It's something that is practiced, that should be practiced. It should be practiced in general. When it's practiced, it may bring our ego close to reality, and we can have a real image of ourselves. So we can diffuse these illusions, which are in truth are very detrimental because they bring about a lot of disillusionment. I really hope and I wish you that your professional development would look like that, and not like here when people do not do the right work over themselves. I once again recommend to you the course, The 6 Pillars of Self-Esteem by Nathaniel Branden. All those 6 elements much more broader in his book. And responding to the question, why aren't you doing films, or we're not doing films that we could be creating, it's because quite often we stop at illusion about our ourselves being so exceptional, which then breaks on the wall of disillusionment, and we resign from making our own films, or we break against the wall of the illusion that it's not for us. So it's the other extreme, that we can't do it, that we wouldn't be doing, that it was life mistake and that other people should do it. And how many Lars von Triers can be in the world? Not many, true. But as long as you don't try out, you will not find out. So then the ego and this reality
I ta praca filmowa i realizowanie filmowych marzeń tak naprawdę
so then this
jest trudne i bolesne, ale jest to przechodzić, a dużo trudniej z tego rezygnować. I czuję, że już klaczę na jakimś spięciu, jakiś koszmar panał. Natomiast myślę sobie, że wielką wartością tych
I think the great value of this Film Spring Open is that people who want to create films get great tools to create them, but also they have the motivation to not to let go of this creative work. And I really wish that to you, that regardless of work that you want to do and which place in the world of the film you would want to occupy, so that you do not let it go too easily. And that was me. Thank you very much. Thank you, Film Spring Open. I'm sorry that I couldn't be with you. I couldn't be with you live. I hope somewhere on the horizon Dominik is somewhere there, and that thank you very much that you appeared there and you took over from me. I think it was the best that could happen to Film Spring Open in my absence.
Dziękujemy, Konrad, bardzo.
Thanks,
To
Konrad,
ja
again.
w takim razie zaproszę.
Thank you very much.
Dominika.
So now I would like to
Szarek
invite
jest
Dominik
z nami.
Szarek, who's here with us.
Przyjmijmy go ciepło
Let's
również. I
invite him
Konrad
warmly.
zostaje z nami.
And
Dzięki,
Konrad
Konrad.
will stay with us. Konrad, thank you.
I tak, mamy tu Konrada,
We,
a tu was.
Konrad is here.
Też.
We have you here.
Jeszcze nie? Czy możemy poprosić o włączenie mikrofonu?
Tak, już.
Raz, tak, już tak.
Tak.
Ekstra.
No to dobrze, to tę część
So-
po tym inspirującym
That part after the inspiring lecture of Konrad, we would like to devote
również wam,
also
jeśli
to
macie
you,
jakieś, pytania.
if you have any questions.
I Dominik tutaj zaproponował taki też temat, od którego
Dominic
może
suggested
zacznę,
a topic
który dotyczy,
I,
tak?
I
Mogę?
would start
Może ja
with.
wstęp
Dobrze, proszę
Can I
bardzo.
make an introduction?
Tak, bo jakby, tak jak Konrad
Yes, as
wspominał,
Konrad
bardzo
mentioned,
dziękuję,
thank you
Konrad,
very much, Konrad, for
za w ogóle danie mi szansy tutaj
for
zastąpienia
giving me the
Konrada
chance
na tej
to
edycji Film Springu.
take over
Ja
from
sam
you
byłem
in
kiedyś
Film Spring.
członkiem
I was
grupy
once a member of a
którą
YouTuber
prowadził
group,
Wodek Markowicz.
which
Nie
was
pamiętam,
led
który
by
to był
Wodek
rok, ale to
Markowicz. I
było
don't remember
z
which year that was.
1854.
1854, I think. Yes, like 5 years ago or something.
I ja bardzo identyfikuję się z tą
And I do
prezentacją,
identify
którą
with the
Konrad,
presentation that
wam
Konrad
wygłosił, z kilku powodów. Z jednego
gave a
powodu
moment
takiego,
ago
że
for
ja
several
sam miałem,
reasons.
długą przerwę
First of all,
w swojej
I had a
twórczości,
big
trochę spowodowaną
hiatus
właśnie
in my creative
pewnymi
work
problemami, błędami,
related to certain
o których
problems and
Konrad
mistakes
też
that
opowiadał
Konrad
i
was
przed
talking
którymi
about,
was,
and from which
w tej
he
swojej prezentacji,
warned you in
trochę
his
przestrzegał między
presentation to
wierszami,
some sort
ale właśnie
between the
związanej
lines,
z lekko przerośniętym
related
ego.
with a bit
A z drugiej
of a
strony
bloated
Konrad
ego.
mówił o tym, jak
On the other hand,
ten świat
Konrad
filmu,
was
świat
discussing
internetu
how this
może
world
i
of
powinien się w jakiś
internet
sposób przenikać tymi
and the
doświadczeniami.
film should
I ja na
permeate.
Film Springu zarówno wtedy, jak byłem
And
uczestnikiem, jak
when I was a
teraz,
member in
jak
Film
miałem
Spring
przyjemność,
Open at that time, and also
pomagać
today
wam,
when I had the
rzeczach związanych
pleasure
właśnie
of
z YouTube'em
helping you
stricte,
with the YouTube
to widziałem pewne
topics,
rzeczy,
I saw certain
które
things.
Ja też mam okazję rozmawiać z młodymi
I also have a
twórcami
chance to
stricte
talk to
takimi,
young
chcą tworzyć na YouTube,
creators
tworzyć w
who want to work,
internecie. I tam też
do things on
widzę
internet, on,
pewne
you,
rzeczy,
on,
które już na
on
wstępie-
YouTube, and I
które już na
outright
wstępie
see the
łatwo
things that you can
wyeliminować, ale później
eliminate
bardzo,
very
bardzo
quickly,
ułatwiają,
and then
bardzo
that
ułatwiają,
is
odnalezienie się w tej internetowej
facilitates
rzeczywistości. I też,
finding your
jakby
place
mówię,
in this
widzę
digital
po osobach, z
environment.
którymi mam przyjemność
And I can
oglądać
also see in
film
people that I
Springu,
have a chance to
mimo
talk
iż,
to in Film
zawodowo
Spring Open
pewnie
that
dużo bardziej,
even
dużo
though
bliżej wam do
in
filmu,
terms of
takiego
professionally
rozumieniu
it's
tradycyjnym
closer,
niż do
for
YouTube'a,
you're
czy
closer
w ogóle
to
twórczości internetowej,
film
to
or
zakładam, że
YouTube
część
than
z
YouTube.
was lub większość z
I
was
assume that
gdzieś w tym
some of you or
internecie
majority
swoją,
of you maybe
swoje miejsce
have
stara
their
się zagospodarować
place
lub
on
będzie
try to
starał się
occupy their
zagospodarować
place
w
in the
przyszłości,
digital
bo
world
jednak
in
tego
the
trochę
now or in the
wymagają
future
czasy.
world, because this is
I
what the
stąd
times
właśnie
expect us to
zaproponowałem,
do.
że
And that's
możemy
why
kilka
I
zdań
suggested that
zamienić
we
właśnie
can
na
exchange
ten
a
temat,
few words
jak to
on this
wygląda,
topic,
więc-
how it works.
Tym hasłem wywoławczym do tej
And our
sytuacji
motto
są
for this,
błędy,
for
które
this,
możemy popełniać,
sorry, this
w byciu
buzzword for this, or the
internecie.
keyword
Jestem
here
ogromnie
are the
ciekawa, co
mistakes or
Dominik
errors you can
mają
commit
do
in the
powiedzenia
internet.
na ten temat.
To jakby z mojej
I'm very interested
perspektywy,
what you can tell
i
about
tego,
that,
czym
say
się z
about
wami
that.
chciałem podzielić, co
From
ja
my
bardzo często
perspective,
obserwuję.
From what I observe very
A propos
often,
już stricte social mediów, tego,
talking
o czym
right now
rozmawialiśmy,
strictly about social media and about what we
uczestnikami,
discussed
ja
with
i ty
the
w trakcie tych
participants
warsztatów,
during those workshops.
to jest
Bo
coś
myśmy jeszcze w
because
grupie promocji
We were in the
sporo
promotion group and we
analizowaliśmy.
analyzed quite a lot
zjawisk
of different
tak, a tutaj
behaviors
jakby
there.
to ego, jeśli mówimy
And
o
here,
social
if we're
mediach,
talking about
o
the ego in
internecie,
social
no to
media
jest duże pole do tego, żeby to ego
and
wybuchało.
internet, this is like
I
the
bardzo
the
często-
best environment for the ego to explode.
I bardzo często jest tak,
And it's very often so
że trochę odwracamy
that we
dynamikę tej całej
reverse the
sytuacji
dynamic of the
i
whole
od
situation,
złej strony się do
and
tego
we
troszeczkę
approach
zabieramy.
it
Ja
from a
bardzo
wrong
często
angle.
obserwuję,
I
w pewnym
quite often
momencie,
observe that at
obecność
some
w social
point
mediach i obecność w
your
internecie i ta
presence in
twoja
social
prezencja
media and in
jest
the
dużo
internet and
ważniejsze
your self-presence is much more
niż
important
to, co tworzymy.
than what
I,
you create.
I mi się kapitalnie podoba
I
przykład Mona
absolutely
Lisy,
love
która
the
w
example of
internecie,
Mona Lisa,
która
who
na Instagramie
which
jest
on
obecna
the Instagram
pewnie na
is
setkach tysięcy
is
różnych zdjęć, a nie ma nawet konta. Tak?
on
Nie,
the
nawet
on many
osobą,
different
która ma
accounts and it
konto na
doesn't even
Instagramie.
doesn't have
I to
its own
fajnie
account, so it's
pokazuje,
not even a live person who would have
Że
the
doszliśmy do
account.
takiego
So we
momentu
got
w
to
social
this
mediach, gdzie
moment in the social media
ważniejsze jest to,
where it's
co
more
my
important
mówimy,
what we say,
co my chcemy
what
nadawać,
we
tak, czyli
want
trochę
to communicate.
skręcamy w
So
tym
it
kierunku, od
was
którego odchodziliśmy, czyli kiedy w
veering
starych mediach
towards what we
był
departed from.
wydawca, był
In the
nadawca,
old media, we had
mieliśmy,
the
kilka
editor,
kanałów na
we had the
krzyż i kto decydował, co
broadcaster,
będziemy
we had a few
oglądać.
channels, and
Social
somebody
media tędy
decided what we
oglądać
will watch.
demokrację
And the
w tym
social
zakresie
media was to
i
democratize
oddać głos
that and to
wszystkim.
give the voice to
Natomiast
everybody.
troszeczkę wszyscy zmierzamy
However,
do
now
tego, że
we're all
znowu
coming
gdzieś,
back to the
gdzieś,
point when
zaczynamy być głusi
we started
na to,
to be
na
oblivious
społeczność,
to the
którą mamy wokół
community
siebie,
that
a
we have
zaczynamy
around us. And
jednokierunkowo,
we're starting to
jednokierunkowo
we're
nadawać. I
selecting
ta
one
Mona Lisa
channel
jest
and
takim bardzo fajnym
where
przykładem,
we have the broadcast and the
który mi się
reception.
podoba, bo
And
tak
Mona Lisa is
naprawdę
a great example that I
social
like,
media to jest
because
pewien
social
objaw, a nie
media
taktyka. Ja do tego tak
is
lubię
a
podchodzić
certain
i zawsze to
phenomenon,
mówię,
not a tactics.
że czy ustawimy taki,
Whether
czy
we
inny
set
opis na
this
Twitterze, na
description or
Instagramie,
that
czy damy
description
sobie
in
taką
Twitter or
fotkę
Instagram, we
profilową,
get
czy
this
taką,
profile,
to nie ma
photo or
absolutnie
the other,
znaczenia.
it
Są ludzie,
doesn't matter at all.
którzy uważają,
There are people who
którzy są
believe and
przekonani,
who are
że to są
convinced
sposoby na
that
to, żeby
these are the
zaistnieć
ways
w
to
internecie, żeby
make
gdzieś
your
swoją
mark,
ideą się podzielić, żeby
to
nasza
make
idea
your
poszła
mark
w
in the
świat.
internet
A tak
for our
naprawdę
idea to
jedynym
go into the
sposobem
world.
na to, żeby nasza
And the
idea się
only thing
rozprzestrzeniała,
for our
jest
idea to be
posiadanie idei,
disseminated
która jest
is
warta
to have
rozprzestrzeniania,
an idea which is
która jest
worth
warta tego, żeby o niej
disseminating,
mówić,
which is worth
warta
talking
tego,
about,
żeby się nie
which
udzielić.
is worth
I to
sharing.
jest coś, o czym
And this is
bardzo,
something
bardzo
I'm talking
często
very often,
zapominamy. Wielu młodych
which we
twórców
forget about
przychodzi
very
po
often.
złoty środek, przychodzi
Many,
po jakieś
many people
sposoby.
come here,
Przypomina mi się
come to me
Kieślowski.
for a
Nie
golden
gdzie
bullet.
stawiać kamerę, tylko po co?
I remember the words of
dokładnie
Kieślowski.
tak.
It's not
W social
where you
mediach
put
to
the
chyba
camera,
tak
it's
samo działa.
what you put the
Dokładnie
camera
tak
for.
samo. I
It
my też
works like that in
rozmawialiśmy,
social
wczoraj
media.
nagrywaliśmy z
Exactly.
Magdą,
Yesterday
podcast
we
a
were
propos,
recording podcast with Magda
kompozytorów, którzy
about
weszli na social
composers
media, tak, którzy się
composers who
pojawili.
To w ogóle
appeared on
wam
social
polecamy,
media.
przepraszam
And
za
we
taką
recommend to you,
prywatę, chociaż
I'm
to
sorry
dzisiaj
for
w
this,
streamie też dla
for
was
sort of
pójdzie.
this
Prowadzę
shameless
podcast
plug.
Score in the City o muzyce
I have
filmowej i
a podcast
wykorzystałam
Corner City and I
obecność
used the
Dominika, który
presence
ma
of
dużą
Dominic
wiedzę
who has a lot of
na temat
knowledge
mediów
about
społecznościowych.
social
Nagraliśmy
media
taki
and we
odcinek,
recorded an
ponieważ 3
episode
dni temu Hans
because
Zimmer zadebiutował na TikToku. I ja
3
zadałam-
days
to był
ago
dla mnie
Franz
taki
Zimmer
punkt
debuted on
zapalny.
TikTok
Zadałam
and for
takie
me that was
pytanie
the
Dominikowi,
the
dlaczego
trigger and I asked
gość, który ma
Dominic,
miliony
why
na
a guy
koncie,
who has
Oscara i w ogóle
millions
mógłby
on his
nic nie
account and
robić,
Oscar and he could do
idzie
nothing
w promocję na TikToku.
goes into starts
I-
promoting
właśnie,
himself on
już.
TikTok.
Tak,
Dlaczego? Zobaczcie.
Why?
A przy okazji Dominik się
You
przyjrzał
see for
jeszcze
yourself.
innym
And Dominic
kompozytorom, co
also
robią na
looked at other composers
Dokładnie
what
o
they
tym
do in different
rozmawialiśmy.
channels.
Często
And this is
i
what
często
we
jest
talked
tak,
about.
że my
It is
widzimy
often so that
pewien
we
efekt,
see
pewien
certain
jakby
effect,
koniec
we
drogi,
see certain
czyli, nie
end
wiem,
of the
Hans Zimmer
road,
wrzucający
let's say
film na
Hans
TikToka,
Zimmer
który
putting a film
łapie w ciągu
or
2 dni tam, nie
a
wiem,
clip or
300
on a
000
TikTok which gets
wyświetleń,
300,000
rozchodzi się wiralowo,
views,
tak, 100
you get the
ludzi go
viral
obserwuje po
spread,
jednym dniu i tak
like
dalej.
millions of people watch it after one day.
Natomiast za tym wszystkim
But all
jednak stoi
after
praca.
all that
Jakby
you
to,
have
że,
work. Behind all that you have
pół
work.
świata
Half of
zachwyca
the
się
world
tweetem
sort of
marki
looking
Oreo
at
w czasie finału Super Bowl,
the
to
tweet
jakby
of
nie
Oreo
jest kwestia tego, że to
during the
jest
Super Bowl.
tweet,
It's not
tylko
that
że
it's a super tweet. What was there in that tweet?
generalnie oni są znani z
General,
tego, że,
they're known
że świetnie
for
odnajdują się takiego
for
online
you know for
marketingu.
doing very well in this
Tylko to,
online
że
marketing.
X lat wcześniej,
But
X 10
X
lat wcześniej
or
ktoś
number of
wymyślił
years before
ciasteczka,
somebody came up
z którymi ktoś się
with
identyfikuje, z
cookies
którymi
that
ktoś ma
somebody
jakieś
identify
emocje,
with, somebody has
na
emotions
którym komuś innemu
devoted to it
zależy.
that somebody
Więc
else
jakby
cares about.
Musimy pamiętać o
We
tym,
have
że
to remember
że jakby social media nie są
That
celem
social
samym
media
sobie i
are
nie są
not the goal in
narzędziem do
itself and they're
osiągnięcia
not a
celu,
tool for
a
achieving
praca, która
anything.
może
And
się
the
w social
work
mediach
that
rozchodzić. I to uważam, że takie za taką jakby
this is just the important thing is that the work you can promote through social media. And this is a thing that many young people forget about. And another thing is, I think Konrad is reading something else. No,
Mam myśl, tylko nie chcę
I have a thought, but
Dawaj,
I
bo ja chcę
don't
zmienić
want
myśl,
to
więc,
zostawić kropkę.
Więc kropka.
interfere. Yes.
Okej. Jak Dominik, jak rozmawiacie o tym, to
When you're talking about that, I was thinking
to bardzo rezonuje z tym, o czym
that it
mówiłem
resonates a
wcześniej,
lot with
w
what
takim
I said
dobrym
before
balansie,
in the good
bo,
balance.
Czuję trochę tak, że te dwa światy,
I
z jednej
feel that
strony,
these two worlds,
świat nam bliższy
on
do
one
mnie, czyli
hand,
internet,
the world
nowi
which is
twórcy,
closer
a z
to
drugiej
us, the
strony
internet
bardziej
and new
tradycyjny,
creators, and
powiedzmy,
this more traditional
doświadczony,
world,
bardziej
the
artystyczny,
more
który ma dużo większą
experienced, more
umiejętności,
artistic,
właśnie
with
gdzie tą
more
kamerę postawić, jak
skills of
powiedzieć,
where
kadr,
to
opowiadać, jakby to
put
lata
the camera, how to
doświadczenia
tell
sztuki
the
filmowej.
story with a frame within the scene.
Często te drzwi,
And
które
we're sort of,
niedawno
you
zostały
know, but
otwarte.
because we're quite often
I
breaking the
rzeczywiście
doors
dwie
which have been
skrajności,
opened
że,
before, that we have two extremes here.
Albo jest dzieło, albo jest twórca.
You either have the work or you have the artist. The old world says that the work is most important, and when you finish the work, you don't need to do anything else with that. People loathe promotion. That if something goes to some festival, there are some interviews. It's such a sad obligation because I did this film, and everybody should praise that. But on the other extreme, we are. It's like people think it's not important what I do. It's important that I'm doing this, and I think that these are two sides of the same coin. And when I was talking about this first stage, that it should be adequate, that you should not betray your mind, your reason, your mind. Your reason tells you that you need both. You need the work which is worthy by itself. It's interesting. It brings in something new. I think we're all fed up with this bullshit that is going through the media channels. But on the other hand, we need a author who will have the courage to promote this and say that yes, this is valuable. You need marketing. You have those elements. This is the reality. You might like it or not, but the reality is so that if you not want to betray your reason, you have to admit that you need promotion, you need to have both the work and the artist and value that we want to show in the social media. Of course, we could open now a totally different discussion about the balance, and that the work should always be before the author, that's my view. But I thought that yes, this two communities of ours, on two sides of the barricade, instead of looking for cooperation between one and the other extreme, they occupy these extreme positions, and that doesn't work then.
Połączenie z tym, co mówiłem wcześniej, mi się pojawiło, kiedy
to jak mówisz jeszcze, Konrad, teraz ja na chwilkę jeszcze wejdę w słowo, bo ego nam się najczęściej kojarzy z czymś takim, najczęściej mówimy o przerośniętym ego,
o kimś bloated ego, about somebody who is overconfident. Ego has negative connotations.
Dalej chcę pozostać przy negatywnych skojarzeniach.
I want to stay with negative connotations with ego, but I would want to change the perspective a bit.
Nawet na tej edycji z osobami,
during this edition I was talking to people
blokują się trochę,
who get blocked slightly
z powodu, możemy to nazwać jakąś fałszywą skromnością, ale dla mnie to też jest ego. Jeśli
humility, but for me it is also ego. If you hide your work, if you hide what you do, because you don't know what others would say, it's nothing else but ego. It's like thinking that anybody would be interested of what we want to say, what we have to do. In the majority of cases, when we were at the beginning of our professional path, people don't care about that. Apart from our family and our friends, nobody would care if that's not something that is worth talking about. And very often, I also had this myself, the situation like this myself, when we get blocked with something that has some value, that could have some value for someone, only because we are afraid of this external assessment, which is pumped up by Instagram, by Facebook, because where we see like perfect oatmeals, not only perfect people. Sorry, my oatmeal is always perfect. I mean, and we're sort of we don't want to show anything by ourselves because how other people will judge us. And this is, for me, is also a certain shade of ego.
Drodzy Państwo, czy są jakieś
Ladies and gentlemen,
pytania?
Do you have any questions?
Sprzeciw.
Do you object? Do you agree? Do you have a reflection?
Tak, jest. Mamy mikrofon, bardzo prosimy.
Ja w sumie chciałem tylko podkreślić.
I just wanted to underline what you said, highlight what you said, that it's a very interesting point of view, this hiding behind your ego. Just like before we had this big discussion about alcoholism, and this is so that the problems that we have, that we carry around in our backpacks when like 10, 20 years old, and sometimes 50 years old later, it's us. We have those stones in our backpack, and they are us. They get in our way. They hamper our climbing. Sometimes it helps. The film therapy helps. This has happened to me in my life. That at some point I had something to say about myself. And it occurred that I'm writing for 20 pages, and that would not fit in any film. But then I thought, but who the hell does care? I mean, does it care? Do I care? Then it occurred that at this point, through this awareness, it was made later, and I had this moment of catharsis. That's one aspect, of course, of the reality. And that's why it is very important to see it from the perspective you outlined, and it's a very important moment here in Film Spring that you send it. Thank you.
Chciałam się odnieść do tematu, który podniósł Konrad.
I also wanted to refer to the topic that was mentioned by Konrad here, but many times during the group meetings, also with Dominic, it appeared the consequence.
Nawet na to, jak się będziemy czuli ze swoją pracą.
Even we want to know how you're going to feel with our work, especially right now on the internet platform, it's enough to have the passion and fire. What you need is consequence and walking certain path. And nothing is better in consequence than self-awareness, because this is what Konrad said, and how he finished his presentation, that at the moment when we have this self-awareness and acceptance, it's easier, and we have a goal. It's easier for us to reject certain things and to follow a certain path, our own path. It's the worst thing is to change our path every now and then. If we feel that these are paths on the steps on the right path, I think that we will not get discouraged by the first two steps. And this is extremely important when you're working on the internet, also brutally speaking through algorithm, which, well, unfortunately, but it is so. They give you the award consequence, regularity. They give rewards to those that are visible. Not only, but just with the consequence, I could say that consequence is much more important than authenticity in the internet. I heard this very wise sentence once, that I would not want the surgeon that would once have to operate me had. When we think about artists, and it's not my day, I don't feel the climate today, I don't feel the mood, I'm not in the mood today. I would rather have the surgeon to sit on the task at hand, and with all his creativity and the professionalism that he acquired over the way, he would work on this task. And I refer also to that in this way since some time already. The artists, according to me, are, if they want to be professional, if they want to act in a professional way, they should be acting in a professional way too. With certain regularity, when we imagine like a typical artist, then we think about a person that could be like could have their moods, they could have some emotional states. But I believe that a professional artist should be an artist who does his job and completes his job. I wanted to share a certain anecdote. You said something pretty important right now. If you have a bad day, we all have days like that. That it's not working well with the energy from space. It's not right. We have stomachache. We were dumped by a girlfriend or whatever. I once heard this beautiful quote from an opera singer. I'm from an opera singer family, so those masters were somewhere sort of passing through my environment, and I wanted to tell you what this opera singer said to his pupils, and this can be translated to all areas of artistic work. It's not a success. It's not a success when you get up in the morning. You have a beautiful booming voice, you feel great, and you will give a fantastic concert. The success when you get up, everything is wrong, you feel bad, but you will not get below a certain level. So that might be... It's good to remember about that you can have a difficult day, but let's work out a consequence
tak na tyle dobry warsztat i zawsze
and
coś do powiedzenia,
resilience
żeby
and
to
good
dzieło, a
skill
nie my
set,
o nas świadczyło, żeby w
so
sytuacji
that
kryzysowej
in this crisis situation
przynajmniej
we could
wejść
at
na tą
least
taką przyzwoitość,
get to that
na ten
level
taki
of
poziom
decent
przyzwoitości.
work.
Ja się bardzo się z tym zgadzam.
I really agree with that.
Toczy się taka dyskusja,
Sometimes I can hear those discussions.
Rzemiosło czy sztuka.
Is it about
każdej dziedziny twórczej.
artisanship
Czy ktoś
or
będzie
art?
artystą, czy będzie
Whether you're an
geodem, czy
artisan
będzie
or
rzemieślnikiem. Ja sobie myślę, że
or
nie
a-
każdy rzemieślnik
or
musi
a-
być artystą, ale każdy artysta
or an
musi być
artist.
rzemieślnikiem.
I don't think that every
że
artisan has to be an
poza
artist, but I think that every artist should be an artisan. Apart from like some spark of genius, which is always an effect of the people you meet, books you read, the films you watched. It is not something that is a gift of God. I don't believe in muse. I believe in work and the natural potential that we have, but you need your skill set, which is being worked upon very like again and again. When I think about those first very loud successes of Krzysiek Gonciarz on YouTube, right now there's less of him on the YouTube, but he had like this explosion of with his traveling blog after this comedy format, because this comedy format, it was not the best of the stand-up. It was well funny from time to time. I love him, but at the same time there are things which are funnier than him. But the his consequence won him the popularity in the internet. Nobody could say that he's not very he's working very hard. But then I don't know if you would agree with me, but then he was the first YouTuber who did really good shots. He did good camera. He was a good cameraman. And now the competence of YouTubers got better and better, and they have money and they employ very good DOPs too. But before that, Krzysiek was the first. He had one of the best. He had one of the best filming hands. He was a good film artisan. Then part of his work turned toward film production, the commercial production, etc.
Więc tak, tam po prostu było,
Yes.
było rzemiosło, nie?
You could see the artisan's hand in that. You could see the skills. Quite often, well, from time to time, I can see I meet with people trivializing the work of YouTubers or creators of internet content, but then I defend them because I know how much work it takes if you do anything alone. Regardless of it does not have to be Krzysztof Gonciarz. It does not have to be anything of special quality, but it can be. But let's take any creator whose work achieves any sort of public, and the regularity and the determination these people have to once a week or twice a week, or like Krzysztof at some point has a daily vlog. Of course, he had a person in Poland who edited everything on the go, but all the raw material was supported by him every day. So the amount of work that these people do every day is immense, and I do feel that here, among these authors, the amount of work and the regularity of this work causes that they are sort of moving away from the image of a stereotypical artist. But what those bigger artists or the artists with a bigger ego could learn from that is this determination and regularity of work, of this everyday over these skill set. Konrad said that he doesn't believe in muse. Picasso said muse, well, it believes. They exist, but they have to find you at work. And this is something we wish to everybody. Does anybody want to ask anything? If not, and if you do not want to add anything, I have one more thought talking about this internet world. It's easier for us to say about the good things in our YouTuber world. On the other hand, I observed what happens when somebody with the skill set of the old school enters our world, which happens a lot recently. This will not be a film example. I didn't start from the film, I started from feature writing, and for the long time it was closer to me, but we had not an inadequate ego. Ego by itself is nothing bad. When it's adequate, it allows you to manage yourself pretty well and to be here now. It's bad when it whether it
Natomiast
shrinks or grows.
wydawało się, że blogosfera
But I believe that
w tamtych
blogosfera
czasach
in
będzie
those
coś,
times would be something
w zasadzie zatopi świat starego dziennikarstwa.
that
W tym
would
była jakaś
destroy the world
absolutna
of all
arogancja. Wiecie,
journalism.
świat
It was
reportażu,
like
ludzie,
horrible
którzy mają
arrogance. The world
doskonały
of journalists,
warsztat
people who are
literacki, doskonały
great
warsztat
writers,
dziennikarski,
great
wychowankowie Hanny
journalists,
Kral,
the
po prostu
pupils of Hanna Kral.
z czym do czego, to be honest.
I mean,
Natomiast,
to be honest, I couldn't match up to them. But at some point, Mariusz Czygiel started to do his to he entered social media, and over several months he got incredible popularity because he put on the internet his literary skill set and his personality.
Bardzo często się udaje. W świecie podcastów,
And this happens quite a lot. It also happens in the world of podcasts that you have professionals getting on the world of podcasts, the people from the old media, and very quickly, with the quality, they can make their mark there. I'm a person of old media who enters the new ones, so I'm listening to this and I'm soaking in. Yes, if we started to cooperate, if we started to exchange experience and to create stuff with openness, that would make a great project. On YouTube, an example of person who entered the new media is Robert Makłowicz, for example. He found a new life. I mean, Robert Makłowicz enters everything in a great way.
Super
That's incredible.
Gwiazda,
He's
super
like a
gwiazda.
superstar.
Natomiast też przeczytałem
But
taką jedną
also I
opinię,
read one
że
opinion
bo
that
on tam gdzieś
because
którejś powiedział
once he
że,
said that
no tu może być sobą i
he can be
w ogóle
himself
taką
here,
radę też
and
dał,
he also gave an advice:
do obecności w swoim internecie, bądź sobą.
be
Ktoś
yourself.
napisał,
And somebody wrote him,
fajnie mówić,
it's
bądź
good-
sobą,
it's
jeśli
good-
jesteś Robertem
it's good to say
Makłowiczem.
be yourself if you're
To
Robert
jest ważne,
Makłowicz.
bo-
That's also important
Jakby zupełnie inaczej wchodzi
Because
w YouTube, w media społecznościowe człowiek, który nie jest
it's
znany z
different
telewizji,
when
a
somebody
zupełnie inaczej
who's not
wchodzi
well
ktoś,
known
kto
from
tę
TV
popularność,
enters the YouTube,
nawet
and
Mariusz Szczygiel
even
jest
Mariusz
w pewnym
Szczygiel
sensie
is
super
in a way is a
gwiazdą, bo jest
superstar
ogromnie
because
rozpoznawalny, prawda? Ale
he's
zupełnie inaczej
everybody knows him.
wchodzi
It's
ktoś, kto
different
po prostu
when
jest,
it's somebody who's
nie chcę powiedzieć
I don't want to say
Jankiem
Mr.
Kowalskim,
Nobody,
bo Janka
because we
Kowalskiego, ale
might
wiecie,
have somebody
po prostu
whose name
człowiekiem,
is
który
some
zaczyna,
nobody
który
here, but the
tylko
person
przeciera te szlaki.
who's just a beginner and
Jedne z
he
najfajniejszych
has to
dyskusji,
push himself through.
na
It's one of the
Film
most
Spring
interesting
Podcast.
discussions we had in Film Spring.
Co
I'm sorry because I believe so, because this was my job too.
Mnóstwo ciekawych
A lot
wniosków,
of interesting
bardzo dużo
conclusions, a
ciekawych
lot of
spostrzeżeń,
interesting
rad, bardzo
remarks,
konkretnych czasem,
advice,
więc cieszę się,
some
że
really concrete advice. So I'm happy we could get to know each other. Konrad
I
Kruczkowski, thank you very much, and we wish you good health. Thank you. Same to you. Dominik Szarek, thank you very much.
Za przedłużenie wam czasu teraz, ale
Thank you and sorry for
Było
keeping you so long, but it was worth
Ja
it.
jeszcze dwa ogłoszenia. My
Two announcements.
oglądamy tutaj
At-
w auli filmy
At
na
8 we're
koniec.
watching the films,
Jest
at
jeszcze
the end the
specjalna
screenings,
prośba od
and there's a special
do
request
11 jutro trzeba się wymagać.
from Marta. You have to leave your room, check out
Pamiętajmy
by
o tym,
11 tomorrow.
świętując dzisiaj.
Remember about that,
Do zobaczenia.
enjoying the
Dziękuję.
finals today.